as we get started on this Sunday morning in the last day of the weekly candle. We're approaching the last, you know, we're approaching the nitty gritty of about 9.5 hours here until the weekly candle close. I was a little bit later than 10:15. I think, what are we, about 10 minutes after? I decided to walk up to the store for Julie. She needed something. And I didn't want to make her wait until after. So I'm like, I'm going to take a nice little walk. It was about 2,000 steps there and back. So I got a nice, I don't know, 1.1 mile walk before this live, which is nice. But last night we talked about, if you guys were here, and I don't want to talk in the past tense, but it is important just to catch us up. Last night during the live, we were talking about the fact that it was an opportunity for a little bit of a swing trade if you wanted to take it. I'm not interested because I wanted to watch it from a deeper level and not have to worry about the market, even though I probably should have. But we were talking about how it needed to come back up and we should get some kind of pedestrian bounce at the very least for this back test. And if you go by XRP, it was just to back test this pattern formation. And that's exactly what it did. And I know when we were live last night, XRP was about $2.78. And I said, if you want to take a shot, this would be the time to do it. You would back test at the very least the pattern structure breakdown. And then if you got a rejection, it's giving you a technical target of, well, that's the technical bottom if it got rejected. We didn't know where it was going to hit, but we projected it to hit somewhere around there. It actually hit a little bit farther. Actually, it was pretty close, though. Because it had to be a quick back test while the weekend was still going on. So we thought it would back test somewhere around here, which it did. Actually, it did it perfectly right in that area. So that $2.26 would be the technical drop. However, you still got that short-term uptrend that's here, which is still important. And that's about $2.65. Tanya talked about this yesterday in the live, spot on when she brought it up, and I was very happy to see it. She said we got that 265 level that is still there. Whoops. However, as time goes on here, as this uptrend goes on, now it could be all the way up at 270. So you got 270, 265, you can expand it. And then 250 is the FVG. And then you've got the 226, which is the technical drop here. So we're all over this pattern. And whether it's a resistance hit on the bearish continuation in the 4-hourly, 2-hourly, however you want to look at it, or if this is going to open up bullish, we're going to be on top of it every step of the way. And if we can squeeze ourselves, and this is the bullish scenario, I'll give you the real bullish scenario here, and then the follow through bearish continuation here. So it had a bounce, so we're now, Tom. That is what is important now, Tom. Indy Rod, you can't know where it's going to go next until I explain the bounce it just had. Patience, my friends, patience. It's a great question, Indy, because we want to know where it goes next. But if you just listen for a sec, I will show you exactly what's going on and what's happened overnight. You know, there's a reason we knew that we were going to bounce up last night because of the overexhaustion in the daily. The weekly still overrun, but in the daily, it was a perfect time for it to happen. And then in the short term, remember, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange works both ways. So when we closed on Friday, we talked about how we were around $2.93, $2.92. And even though we're at 278 yesterday, when that CME opens on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, that gap area, it works both ways. You should come back up to it if you're below, or if you're above it, you should melt back down to it by Monday. So that's part of the equation here. But anyhow, with XRP, I'm going to do a better job of focusing deeper on XRP, especially when we're in these micro movements. Before we got stuck in an area where we knew where it was going, so we were trying to look around the market to get some validity. But I can show you this very nicely with XRP. So we came down, and now the back test here, and in the 2-hourly, you can see the death cross for the 20-day, right, for XRP. Slightly different pattern. On some of the other ones, I can show you it in the 4-hourly as well. XRP will look slightly different, but you can see the death cross with the 20. 50 to the 100 is a bearish cross. We're on the verge of a death cross here. If this gets rejected here, this will confirm a short-term pattern reversal. And then your only saving grace would be if we get a rejection here, you'd have to try to hold here to form the universal 1, 2 for double bottom on the uptrend. And then the bullish scenario would be to roll out like this. Okay? Or if you could have done a V shape, you get on top, and get out. It doesn't look like the V shape is transforming because we don't have any volume. I know it's a thinly traded volume, but even for a thinly traded volume, this is thinly traded. But this is why it's important here. Is this a bearish continuation, or is this the start of a pattern correction back to the upside? We simply don't know. By the looks of it, it looks like it's probably going to be a bearish continuation, but you simply can't know yet. So what's going to happen from here? Well, we've got two decisions here. One, we get rejected here at this $2.89, like we've so far not rejected, but at least we came up here and we weren't able to pass this area, which we talked about 289, which is where you should be looking. So it's either, and you could put it up a little bit higher even because you got at 291 the dot cross, yada, yada, yada. But if this rejects at 289 like it has so far, even though it hasn't broken down, this is where you would get the rejection of the short-term micro pattern that broke down. We have a bigger pattern in the macro, but you can't overlook the micro, right? So this is the micro rejection. If it happens, then if it comes down, you would have that uptrending support that's just below. And right now in real time, it's about $2.70. How do you get that? You get it by the uptrend that was started. So we had this inverse setup, back tested the breakout, which was a little inverse head and shoulders here. But this is where the uptrend officially started after the break. Support, back up, support. We've never failed this line now. So all the way back up. And then when it fails, what do? We come back to the safekeeping of the uptrend. Right now it says $2.70 is our friend. As long as it's above 270, this can be overzealous selling out. We might be clearing out some overwork like in the stochastic and the weeklies and things like that as the daily starts to straighten itself because it was oversold coming into the last night. And now we've gotten a little rebound. So that's what we're looking at in the short term for XRP. Now, what ends up happening here is like what we were setting up last night, and now we can re-emphasize. If this is a rejection here, you come down to that. The technical drop would be around $2.26. However, we still have 270 underneath that could hold us. But understand if we come to 270, you're going to form that death cross in the 4 hourly. It's just going to happen. It's so close right now. We're about 1 to 2 candles away right now. And then that 250 is the FVG area. So that's a fair value gap that was left earlier on in the pattern that if we break 270, there's simply no reason not to go there. And for the ones who will stick around with this kind of information and pay attention and hone it and grasp, this is where you're going to make real wealth in moments like this. Because yesterday, and I haven't said anything in the Telegram today, but yesterday my pure message to the Telegram and the pager was now is a great time to evaluate and have a plan. Is this a level you desire? Are you waiting to see how it plays out, lower target, or even waiting for confirmation of a bullish reversal? It's a great opportunity to draw out some technicals and see what conclusions you come up with. And the reason I said that was because we were just about to break down out of this pattern. And now you could draw it like how I've drawn and tried to come to some conclusion. So like we have our uptrend underneath. We know our targets of support. We know the gap areas and we know the technical drop target. We knew the back test area. Even if bearish, it should have come up towards 290, as high as $2.92. So it hasn't completely exhausted itself yet in that sense, but it has come up to the lower area. So this is why you would draw it out even on a drop, even if you're not buying. And now you'll be able to, honestly, this is where I say we can make the pattern our bitch because we have every single part of the pattern formation in the micro. We know it in the macro, but now it'll tell us an entry point. If we get back bullish here, this would be an entry point. If we can hold this pattern. Right now, absolutely not. Right now would be the pedestrian bounce. You look for that 5% or so move yesterday, which we've gotten. And then if you're playing it just on a pure swing in the Sunday with the thinly traded, with the weekly candle closing, you would sell it at this point. Wait for a further confirmation. Even if it breaks up, you can always buy it back. But this is your confirmation point where we're back testing, where if you were just playing that swing from last night we talked about, even though I didn't play it because I don't want to play that short term. I'd rather be laser focused in on what's happening to the next term. So I chose to sit back right now and kind of watch this play out to see if this is a bearish rejection. But this is where if you were playing a micro move, you can make that micro gain right now. So, but real quick, I apologize. I got to stop talking for 1 second. I took my essential amino acids this morning, which covers pretty much every single one of the basic amino acids. But I forgot to take this multi-mineral. And this has the sea moss, elderberry, black seed oil, ashwagandha, burdock root, chlorella and manuka honey. And I like this one. I fast 16 hours a day, so I haven't eaten until noon. So I like to take these essential minerals and amino acids and stuff before I eat for the first time. But I love this. I just started taking this particular one. I don't even have to take it in a liquid. It comes in a powder, like a little powder thing. And I really like them. I really like them. Yeah, Hong Kong and in China, it started to be banned about a month and a half ago. But they fully banned it now. Even the workaround, as of yesterday, was what I've been reading. Now, I'm not from Hong Kong. I don't live in China. I don't live in Japan or the Asian countries. But from what I can tell, it fully got implemented last night. So if you want to talk about a perfect storm to have a collapse in the market, and then Eric Trump came out as well and said, I'm buy Bitcoin, buy Ethereum, or whatever the hell he said about Ethereum, buy. Last time he said this, Ethereum fell off by like $2,000 almost immediately. Notice. Last time Eric Trump told you to buy, Ethereum dropped off by $2,000. You know when he wasn't telling you to buy? That whole time it was down at 13, 14, 15, and 16 after a 60% drop. You know when he finally told you to buy again? When we hit a liquidity backtest top. It's dangerous, folks. It's dangerous. I usually do the opposite of what the politician said. The guru came out and said, I bought Bitcoin and Ethereum because the Trump said to. When the day before he said, this scumbag, this orange guy, this orange douchebag, you know, Donald Dump, is the reason why the market dropped. So, I mean, you can talk out both sides of your mouth, but just look at the chart. Trump ain't the reason it dropped. We can say all we want. Was Biden the reason the market was going up? Absolutely not. You know, so in the market right now, this is what we have to watch. I don't care what it does either way. If it comes back up and it allows me to buy back into this market and be bullish now going forward into like, but August is traditionally not a good month for crypto. Historically, you can go back whether it's a bearish or bullish market, and August is probably the most bearish month in crypto. Let me see what AI says real quick. No. The most dangerous month. So September. Well, September is more bearish than August. That makes you wonder. This is interesting. Holy crap! I gotta read this stuff about what's going on with Hong Kong. This is insane. Big dog, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for rebuying DGB. I mean, I feel naked in a lot of senses with this market right now. I always feel naked when I'm in a position like this. But I also feel empowered because I can see the setup in front of me and I can let the market do whatever it wants. Yeah, Al goes up 5.8%, but that 5.8% is barely even rebounding from the drop. So if you look at it in a grand perspective, like all of these are kind of in the same spot right now in the 4-hourlies. It's like we need to overtake this, which right now we should come up even up to 2450 to the 200-day. We sometimes have these overruns. Right now we've back tested this gap here. So like it's very dangerous this morning. Like I liked it last night where it was set up when I said, hey, this would be the spot to do it because we have these zealous, even if it's a pedestrian bounce. If it's a good one, then you caught it at a great spot if we end up overtaking this. But even on a pedestrian bounce, you were able to ride it up here for 4 or 5%. But now it's like, does this completely reset? Because this is the same typical thing you would do on a death cross in the 4-hourly. You'd back test it. We back tested the cross here, back tested the 20 cross and the 50 and the 100, back testing the actual death cross now, and the gap being filled. We back tested every gap area on the way down, which is interesting to say the least. There's no open gap here for algo. And it suggests when you sell resistance, you buy support. So a rejection here brings algo down to about 1926. Just remember that. So rejection here, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. We could very well overtake this and flip bullish again, which, whatever. I hope so, because then we can make some money here quicker. But you also make money on the way down. So a rejection here around 24.50, but the next target would be around 19.38. So let's just say it does come up a little bit higher and then we get a rejection. That's a 20.5% dump. That's what we'd be looking for in the market. That's going to be the overwhelming fear right now would be, hey, if we do get the rejection here on these parts of the pattern, this is where it opens up another 20 to 30%. However, if it doesn't drop here, that's where you can get the cumulative gain here. So we're going to watch it very closely to see if we overtake. We'll go through the intro, and then we'll look at the same thing we looked at XRP and Bitcoin. We'll look at Ethereum. We'll see gold and silver to see exactly what it's trying to tell us to start the week. Gold ended up 72 bucks on Friday, and silver ended up over 37. So there's a lot of stuff to discuss. The morning should be volatile. It's still on that more bullish handle here today, but testing that same area of concern where it's either going to be confirmed a death cross up here, and there's still about 1% or 2% that this can still jump very easily without even blinking. Like without even blinking here across the board. So I don't even think you should fear this morning yet. I think we should just pay attention here and be like, hey, at least it's green. At least we understood how it had to rotate the bottom and at least retest these areas at the very least. But now we can also look at the fact that maybe it can overtake these. And if we start getting up towards 7, 8, 9% across the board and start getting on top of these death cross areas and also bouncing back into the formational back test, maybe we could start something. Ethereum still got about $73 to go before we can get into that area, which tells you there's still a little bit of top room. There could be another 2.5% on Ethereum, even just to get up to that break point. So that's around 3,558. But it is behind. So we're just getting the 20 crossing the 50 and now the 100. So the back test, it's behind. These are the areas where it gets your dopamine going and you're like, the gambling mindset goes like, hey, look at this. Look at this. So good morning. 10:43 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Sunday, August 3rd, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire with the side bet on XM and Future Digibite OG, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. Just because of the debacle with the DGB wallet doesn't mean I like it any less. I still think it's fundamentally in the same positioning I always thought. It just makes it hard to hold until I can find an exchange that, I can actually hold it. Since the wallet did not work out in my favor, and it almost cost me $18,000, which was lost for a couple days until I finally got somebody to reach out to me and fix the problem. I don't even want to go through it. But anyhow, I'm going to say hi to a few of you, and then we're going to get into the Bitcoin chart as we continue this little bit of bullish bounce here on Sunday. Make everybody smile. XRP's biggest loser, good morning. Solar Jeffy, welcome in 9 days after new moon. The low again was yesterday. Today is 58.9% to date of year 83. The reversal date. Interesting. Very interesting. Great information, Soul Jeffy. This is why I love doing lives instead of updates now. I love seeing everybody's info. Dan Marginal, good morning, and thanks for being the #2 top fan and also in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. Says good morning and praise the Lord for today. Amen to that, and don't forget to give thanks to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ on this beautiful Sunday morning. And remain humble, show humility, and, show on a outward way your integrity. We've got more than one person speaking the name of our Lord and Savior, and as we know, when more than one speaks the name of our Lord, Yahweh or Yeshua becomes present, and God lends his guidance in our actions, and I firmly believe that. So, don't forget to give your tip of the cap to Yahweh along the way this morning. The Fine Group, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 3 months with the XRP Media, and also the #3 top fan with so many others this morning. Very trusted mod, very, very, very trusted in the Telegram as an admin, and he put out a phenomenal, and JW, welcome in, my friend. I knew you'd be here this morning. It's awesome to see you. Awesome to see you here this morning. Everybody say hi to JW as well. YouTube still won't let him talk in our chat, which is bullshit. He's been here for many, many years. But if you're in here, Make sure you read the Reader's Digest. Well, it's actually the, not the Reader's Digest, but, well, I mean, it is the Big House Reader's Digest. But Define did a great job, and I want to read one thing from it because I found it. He emulated my point beautifully. Yes, Julie?
That was just.
Oh, okay. He emulated my thoughts perfectly this week. So, my thoughts of the week, and I'll read this real quick. My quip tip of the week. In the world of crypto, patience is as valuable as knowledge. The best decisions often come from taking the time to understand rather than rushing in. And my weekly thoughts. In this week's newsletter, I want to emphasize the importance of considering both micro and macro. Whoops, shit. I didn't want to do that. I was looking at something on the side. I wanted to, never mind. Let me get back to this. Because we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but I really wanted to read this because he emulated it perfectly. So in this week's newsletter, I want to emphasize the importance of considering both micro and macro perspectives when making investment decisions. It's one thing to spot a macro opportunity, but it's crucial to spot a micro opportunity, but it's crucial that this fits into a larger macro view. For instance, while there may have been some micro opportunities in the past couple of weeks, from a macro standpoint, we need to assess if the trend is likely to break down on a daily level. It's not enough to focus on short-term gains and overlook the bigger picture. Simply chasing a micro opportunity because it looks good in the moment can lead to serious risk if the macro outlook suggests a potential 30% drop. And that's exactly what we fell into on this pattern rotation. The worst thing we can do is buy in, thinking we can ride out a major loss even if the asset could drop as much as 50%. We need to take a more disciplined approach, start by evaluating the macro setup, identifying clear buy zones, and only then zoom in on macro setups for potential position additions or new entries. The mistake many are making is getting caught up in the micro and ignoring the macro picture, which is critical for making informed decisions. Another key point I want to highlight is the importance of limiting your portfolio if you're working with limited capital. I recommend holding no more than 3 tokens, which that's true for my heart. I've said this from the beginning. When you're on a limited budget, hell, I would even say 1 token until you can identify properly. And then as you start making 1, 2, 3x on that token, let's say you start with 3,500. You make 1x, you take your initial investment back, and now you expand to the next token that you've done some real research on. You understand the targeted levels, and when it gets to where it's going, you branch out. Then when that token does it, so on and so forth. And then before you know it, that initial 3,500, you might have $10,500 in positions with 3 positions now, but it all branched out from that initial 3,500. When you eventually wholesale, maybe it's 15,000. You wait for the bear market, and now you got 15,000 in capital. But I would encourage you to only have 10 and take 1/3 of it, 5,000. Build yourself a savings account and put it into gold or silver. At this time, I would say silver. I won't kill you if you open up an IRA and put it into an emerging markets outside the USA. And in my portfolio, I have a few of them that I can show you as well. It's always up there. But then you get the $7,000 tax write-off. So 5,000 of that would be tax-free. Even though you still have to pay the taxes on crypto, you can take off your bottom line by putting it into an IRA for, your $6,000, $7,000 a year, depending on your age, that you can write off until the back end. And then I encourage you to put it in silver right now. And then you would have 10,000 for the next bear market, 5,000 in silver. And then as you buy in, you've already got, 2.5 times more, or 6,500 more. And it just spirals. That's my own personal model that I've used since 2018. And I thank my lucky stars I have. It's changed my life. Let's see. Hold no more than 3 tokens. This reduces the temptation to make unnecessary trades. I've been noticing a concerning trend where people are selling one asset to move into another within the same cycle. This lateral movement doesn't make sense. And that's something I talk about a lot as well. I don't recommend buying XRP to sell the XRP, to move into XDC, to sell the XDC when you think the move's on, to go into HBAR when it's on the same movement. Now, I understand XRP moved up 10x, so that might be different. But the move in from Algo into IOTA, into HBAR, into Dent, into Data, into Band, just to go back into ZIL, through VeChain, yada, yada. It doesn't make sense. That's the way we lose a lot of money. Because if you're going to buy one, they're mostly going to be in the same rotation if you're in the IoT ISO. So I don't encourage to do that. I don't like the lateral movements. Even if one's already moved 50% and the other one hasn't moved, unless you're done with that token and you want to put more security into the other one because that's what you truly want, then it's something different. But don't just do it for a lateral movement saying this one moved 20, so that one's going to. How many of them didn't do the 20% move after we seen that quick move on data go up 20% on Thursday or Friday just for it to come down and dump like 25 and nothing else decided to do it for the most part? It happens all the time like this. This lateral movement doesn't make sense. Ideally, you should only move between assets based on profits or extra capital, not just because you think one token will outperform the other in the short term. As we move forward, I'll be working to articulate these strategies more clearly, and I encourage everyone to keep these points in mind as we navigate the market. And then our weekly prayer, and I think this is important being a Sunday. We will end this week's Big House Reader's Digest with a closing community prayer gratitude. Gracious God, we lift our voices in gratitude today. Thank you for the gift of life. Whoops. Thank you for the gift of life. Look at me. For the people around us and for the blessings, both seen and unseen, that remind us of your presence in every season. You remain faithful, and for that we give you thanks. Help us to live as a people of gratitude, not just in words, but through love and actions. May we be known for compassion, generosity, and unity. Fill our hearts with thankfulness, our hands with purpose, and our days with peace. And if you want to be more a part of that, make sure if you're in Tom's Army, you go into the YouTube page, and if you want to join Tom's Army, because we had to put a layer of security, we got 448 members or so. Join Tom's Army. I'm a member for 50 months of my own army. And then click on the Telegram, and it'll bring you right there. And if you don't want to stay part of Tom's Army for more than 1 month, so be it. I encourage you to show the support, but if not, that is completely up to you. And I know we had a new member join Tom's Army today, so let me welcome Brad Thompson. Thank you so much for joining Tom's Army this morning in your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. And please, Brad, make sure you click on that Telegram link on YouTube so that you can join our community deeper than just on the YouTube. It's a great environment. The Canadian bacon talk from last night was funny. It was funny. Oliver Marks, Ben B. and Arichi, welcome in, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 6 months with the XP Predictor. Mark Caston, good morning, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for over 1 year with the I Told You So badge. Lori, good morning, and thanks for being the top fan this morning on YouTube. Where's the beef? Morning, Tom. Happy belated birthday to your boy. Thank you so much. Yeah, we celebrated his 6th birthday yesterday. It went phenomenal. I was just glad we were able to do a live after it at like 9 o'clock last night. I'm very stoked about that. Hoping Tom spends a bit more time on XRP today. Indy, well, you're getting your wish this morning. But, the bottom line is I can only show you so much before your brain goes into explosive mode. Like, this is what I had drawn up on the other chart before we had played up all the way. The possibility that if that was the top, we'd have the potential down, then back up possibly, and all these different things. We do have a rather big weekly reversal here, which honestly, that is a cause for concern on this Sunday morning, assuming these back tests get left in the dirt. If we go to the XRP Bitcoin pairing, we're up 3.21%. And right now, you can still see that very strong weekly reversal here. It hasn't broken down the weekly golden cross, so I don't want you to think that. It's been a little bit of a reversal this week. Daily time frame is still sitting in an interesting spot, to say the least. If it can hold here and pull up, this could be a scenario where, we might have opportunity, but we have to wait to see if anything can be validated here. 4 hourly, we're on the backside of a resistance. So, it's a tricky spot here. There's not a lot of volume coming in, but it is thinly traded. But it does look like a topping reversal that continues to need to pour out here. But if we're in a cup and handle, in the short term, this is where we would have to hold and retake this and start breaking in a bullish way. So I'm not going to say it's going to be going down guaranteed or going up guaranteed. I like to watch the pattern, so I can give you a definitive setup, and then you can make a real educated and in-the-moment decision based on what happens. XRP market cap, if it gets rejected on the pending death cross, that would drive the price all the way down to about 133 billion on the market cap. So, that's a significant drop. So you've got to value risk reward here. There was more risk reward than risk last night. Now they're very well in the short term, could be more risk than reward because we had that 5-6% move from the bottom. So this is where you got to really make a decision here. I'm not a fan of buying on the bottom side of these consolidations at all. Especially when we come down this strong after a 20% drop or whatever it was from the top. And we don't get much volume. That just tells me, I mean, XRP fell 25% and we're getting this pedestrian volume on that 5% pushback or 6%. After all that drop, that's not, I want to see more. I want to see more. You know, I want to see more, but I'm not seeing more. I'm seeing less. And I agree, on a Sunday, this is beautiful. People wake up and they see it and they go crazy. I'm not working today. Look at this market. I'm going to make some easy market money. Same people who didn't buy it at 278 yesterday are going to sit in and jump in full blast at 288. You know, so it's weird. Ethereum, still below that big critical point. Hasn't back tested it 100% yet. Doesn't mean it has to come all the way up there. No. It's right now, it definitely doesn't need to if it gets rejected at the 20-day with this death cross here. Maybe it does get rejected early, but maybe the only steam we could get is 35.13. If we break this and then break a new low here, this is extremely bearish. And it's already telling us we're coming down here next under 3,100. Maybe it holds 32 area, but this isn't good, right? I would never, ever, as an influencer right now, advise anybody to just go balls deep right now when it looks like it does. Even though it's got the possibility of reversing, it's just the way it's set up. In good conscience, I couldn't say, hey, you know, buy it because it's railing right here. No, I said last night, if you want to buy, take a shot where it was at. And then you can decide when it comes up to that resistance point if you want to hold or sell. And now we're kind of in that phase right now. So now, I mean, it's really a very volatile time to buy. On the total three, they're all speaking the same thing. 20-day moving average, although it's on the top side of it, so it could be targeting it because it's farther ahead. The death cross potential here in the 4-hourly. So you simply look at this in the total three, and this is all crypto minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. So this is all of our altcoins, meme coins. This is what would predict alt season, even at a finer level than Ethereum's chart. And right now, being below that 965 is critically bad because the next area is 882. So if we get rejected or can't retake that area, you're talking about an $80 billion drop. And now you go from 965 billion to 882. That's a catastrophic drop. This is where altcoins would literally drop off by 20% if this happened. You're talking about a 9%, almost 8.7% move, 83.92 billion in the total three. This would cause a significant drop for alts if this happened. You know, so just, you know, I know like Lori said, and good morning, Lori, and thank you for being the #1 top fan. I know everybody's hungry on this Sunday morning. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in 15 hours. My fast ends in 1 hour, so I can finally eat my protein. I always start out with the same thing, unflavored, real whey protein with isolate peptides. And it's unflavored. There's nothing else to it. The only thing in there is the whey protein and the isolate peptide. That's it. Tastes like shit. So I mix it with collagen peptides and with peanut butter powder. I don't eat peanut butter anymore or peanuts and all that stuff, even though I love them. And cashews, I love them. But I eat the peanut butter powder now. So instead of getting like, you know, 250 calories for 4 grams of protein and 15 grams of all this other crap and added sugar and all this nonsense, the peanut butter powder has 8 grams of protein. You can literally have, 2.5 tablespoons, which equals like 6 or 7 teaspoons. And it's got only, 60 calories, 8 grams of protein, no carbs, none of this other shit, a little bit of fat in it, but not a lot, no sugars, and the only ingredient is the peanut that's been turned into powder. That's the greatest thing I ever discovered. I can't believe I didn't know about peanut butter powder until my 40s. To 41 to be exact. I heard people talk about peanut butter powder. I'm like, what are you talking about, peanut butter powder? And I always just thought it was some stupid thing. I tasted it for the first time. I said, oh my God. And then I thought I was eating a lot of it, and it turns out it's the secret to my like greatest weight loss venture here at the end. It's what helped me go over the plateau at 174, 175. And all of a sudden now, since I switched to the peanut butter powder, switched the way with the proteins and stuff, I went to 168. Well, I might have lost it. Who knows? I don't know what happened, but I've never had that happen. So peanut butter powder, I'm a big fan. But that's what I'm going to have at 12. I always start out the same way. I mix that with the milk, and it's about, with the milk added in, it's because the protein powder is like 100 calories maybe. The collagen peptides are about another 60 or 70. Maybe it's 140 for the protein, and then 50, because it's like 190 without the powder, the peanut butter powder. But the collagen peptides in itself has like another 12 grams of protein. So, I mean, you're really pounding it in there. And protein not only helps you remain fuller, it helps build muscle, and it allows your body to burn fat if you do it properly. Anyhow, we're not talking about that. But I'm looking forward to that in 58 minutes to get my body full of some good stuff. But I've already had my amino acids and my minerals and stuff. So my multi-mineral, oh man, I like starting out that way because you start to get energy naturally. As far as the market right now, besides what we've already talked about, Bitcoin slowly approach that death cross area. We're back within this short-term pattern setup. But until we re-break and get above, this is not exactly the best news because we haven't broken out of the rising wedge. Now, we've fallen back within, and that would tend to target a lower target of 78K. So it's the same thing as XRP. You can start to foresight if it doesn't play out in our favor, right? You can start to set up the levels, and we already have for the last week or two, but now it's becoming real. So you have the uptrend here. And now if it rejects, it's not at 110 anymore. We had the target down. But now it's about 111.7. So 111.7. And if we get a rejection, we'll put it up here on the rising wedge in case it takes longer. At any time, that rising wedge would give you a technical target near, 80K? 79.3. This is the FVG down here at 91.4. So now it's 110. Then the next big level is around 91, which is the FVG. The next big level after that would be the rising wedge breakdown target at 79. And people would be like, hey, what the hell? How can you go from one? Because if it does that, you've round a head formation if this doesn't break up and go to 143. We've already hit my technical target for the Bitcoin bull market already. So that was my target before the cup and handle formed and broke out. So now it's going to have to do something to prove we got to go higher. And that rising wedge, so I guess you could call it a rising triangle, but it would have to pan out and prove that it's not a rising wedge. And right now, it's a little tricky. But we'll see at the end of this weekly candle exactly what this decides. I find this incredibly dangerous in this spot right now. Incredibly dangerous. And also incredibly maybe opportunistic. But it's a very interesting spot at this point. Let's see. Mr. Tally, good morning. Bearman, welcome in. Yep, some of you are saying, that we're due for a big correction. Maybe this time will be different, but it seems to happen every time. Alec, Tony, good morning, and thanks for being in Time Zone for over 3 months with the XRP Meteor. Mosey here, welcome in, and thanks for being in Time Zone for over 1 year with the I Told You So Bad. Ryan Eisenhower, welcome in. Ryan, good morning to you. Smart Dog says, I'm starting to think we missed our sell. I don't think so if you listen to me. If you took my objective, I told you guys, well, I'm not going to say what I said. That's going in past tense. But I don't think you missed it if you were paying attention. I just think if you didn't sell, now you missed it. That's all. And I got to start thinking in different ways. There were many sell points that I acknowledged on XRP way up higher. And I even said I wouldn't mind if you flipped out of XRP at the 340 to 60 range when XDC was at 7.7 to ride that up to 10 cents plus, and then make sure you sold it at 9.7 just so you didn't get caught up in the drop. I mean, I was very transparent with that, so I don't think you necessarily missed it. But if you didn't want to sell it and get rid of it, it wasn't your time. And just because it comes in, XRP is not done yet. I still think no matter what, even in the worst case scenario in its history, it's going to 549 at some point. Whether it goes past or not, maybe it does get kicked in the nuts, and that's just the best it can do. But that's still a lot of potential from here. Even on drops, there's still a lot of potential. I just think there's more potential elsewhere, and I've been very clear about that. The lower XRP gets, the more it opens up potential for itself, though. That's why I love these drops. Because then it starts to become a more favorable bet. But it's apples to oranges right now. If you didn't buy it sub 50, sub 40, you know, in the bear markets to say, hey, I'm going to advise you to buy it at 287 is fucking lunatic. That's lunacy. You know, I haven't advised anybody to buy XRP over 50 cents since 2022 or 21 before that bull market. My objective was stay under 50 cents, more towards that 35 cents because we had an overwhelming uptrend in a very big pattern consolidation that had taken 7 years. And it was our understanding that you would buy that uptrend. And that's how we could target that bull market breakdown in 21 after we got the validation that, in fact, this is a pattern setting up. And we got the true confirmation back here. Even though we came close here, true confirmation came here in 24 of exactly what we were looking for. But the uptrend that we were looking for was to buy this uptrend. So anybody who bought this uptrend, when it came to the uptrend, got the last chance at the uptrend at 38, which was beautiful because that's where we dropped another 5K and then sold it on this big pump over $3. That's what's allowed me to be able to keep the initial bag at 34 and just say, I don't really care what this does. Up, down, left, and right. I bought enough along the way to where I could turn 5 into 40, if not more. I'm just being, you know, objectively biased here. But you understand what I'm talking about. You can do the math how much $5,000 turns into 38 cents. And then how much that turns into at $3 plus, $3.40 plus, you know? So I don't need to sell the rest of it. I don't want to sell the rest of it. I bought what I did at 38 cents so I could objectively just hold that 34-cent bag. And if it comes below it, then I'll objectively make it bigger. But I don't want to sell it. I have no interest in selling that. The only reason I even sold the 5K bag is because I wanted to remodel my house. And I sold 75% of my crypto. Not to just remodel the house, but I did do 60,000 plus in house repairs. But I wanted to take the opportunity in December and January when the market was topping. And I had no doubt about it that it was. And XRP, we figured it could make another bounce up. So at least for some that didn't sell it there, they got that second chance. But for the rest of crypto, you didn't. The rest of crypto didn't come up like XRP. Now, our hope here is that we can overtake this 4-hour death cross that's trying to loom. And we can retake this area. I think the more appropriate way would be to put this right here so you can see it. Because you can come up to this range too and still be bearish. 292, 293. But objectively, we've got to get past here. We have to get past here if we don't want this next phase of 25%, 20% to happen. Juan, good morning, and thanks for being in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. And says, happy Sunday. Jesus loves us all. Indeed. Amen to that. And we thank our shining stars that Yeshua shows us the way. So it had a bounce. We're now... oh, we already talked about that. Let me catch up farther because this is... oh my God, I'm 35 minutes behind. Let's see. I see a lot of people talking. All the world stage, welcome in. And thanks for being in Tom's Army for your first month with the emoji badge of me being abducted by aliens. I don't like wallets. I actually, you know, I know we can put it on Trust Wallet, but I had it on the actual DGB wallet that was told by the DGB community itself, and the DGB on their website was advising to use that wallet. That was the DGB wallet created specifically for the community. And when they didn't even have support for it, and it was just a reskin version of the SomeCoin app, it left serious questions when I realized what was going on about those wallets. I'm not a big fan of wallets. The only one I use is my, in any real sense, is what the XRP and XRP Healthcare that I've had since 34 sits in with the XRP, it's the XRP Healthcare wallet, XRPH wallet. And it's because I felt lonely with my XRP Healthcare sitting there by itself. And, you know, I used to have Zaman, which was formerly known as Zoom. But there's so many different things that I don't like about so many different wallets. And there's just things I don't like. And I'm under the impression of if I'm buying on an exchange and all of a sudden you can't hold it on the exchange, well, it doesn't look good for the actual token itself. So whether it's in a wallet or not, if it gets hacked through exchanges and you can't buy them, what good is it? I mean, that's the way I look at it. A wallet's just as likely to get hacked as an exchange. I would say there's even a more of a chance because there's a chance that you'll lose your code. There's a chance you lose those keywords and phrases. Not everybody's as advanced. There's a lot of loss in transaction from one wallet to the next. You know, and there's no way of getting it back. So I look at the approach a little different than everybody. If the exchanges are so bad, we're screwed anyhow. You just got to stay off the wrong exchanges. That's why I like BITUNIX. They've got, you can ask Defined. He understands it deeply. He'll type it in the chat if you say, what's so special about BITUNIX and its security protocol it uses. He'll tell you. A lot of people don't understand fire blocks, but he'll tell you. He'll tell you why fire blocks are so important to getting your capital back. Even if it's an OKYC exchange. Let's see. It wasn't for bumping into Tom's content 3.5 years ago, I never would have purchased XRP at that price. Amen to that. I've had such good feedback with that. And you know how many people actually bought it back then and are now fully out of it after it got up to 3 plus 350, and they said it was the best and they're the happiest they've ever been. They never had any money. Somebody said they never had money and they turned like $5,000 into 60 or whatever and cashed out. And they said they started to buy XDC. And I looked at it and said, holy moly. This person probably took 10 grand of the 60, bought some XDC everywhere along the way. And they probably got 40, 50K. They'll put some aside for taxes, I'm assuming. But now they probably come clear of 30K even after that investment in taxes. My advice to you is take 15 of it and put it in silver. I know it sounds grand, but we're trying to create a store of value and wealth. So if you've never had wealth, now it's time to store the value. And you can't do it in crypto. You got to do it in silver or gold. And right now I argue that silver is at the best, you know, between silver and gold, it's more valuable by silver. Even though the gold-silver ratio is at 90.7 and not 100, I believe that ratio is going to come down to 30-1 at some point and not lower. Historically, it's been around 7-1. You didn't traditionally see it much higher than that until, you know, it gets out of whack. So my idea is even if you buy it at 90-1, when it goes down to 30-1, it's the same logic I have with XRP. You take the gold, and instead of buying gold, you buy silver. When that goes to 30-1 or better, you can do it at a different ratio if you want. You simply take, and I say you take 5 extra ounces over the 30 for fees and whatever the difference in transaction will be and blah, blah, blah. So you'll take 35 out of your 90 ounces to buy that 1 ounce of gold when it's at 30-1. We're giving it grace, like I said. We're going to add an extra 4 ounces of silver just in case. And then you still have 65 ounces of silver, but you also have an ounce of gold. That's the way to advance it. It's no different than selling XRP after a 10x when XDC hasn't moved and waiting for the ratio to come closer together. Or it's no different than putting into XLM and the ratio's out of whack. Or it's no different than looking at the algo to Bitcoin ratio and being like, well, it's so out of whack. I'm going to start to flip. It's the same logic as I started with gold and silver. And the moment I realized that it was the same way with stocks and assets and things like that, I was like, oh my God, how did I? This whole thing is, this is why you invest and have a real store of value, because then you understand the rest of it. You just understand the rest of it, you know, and it goes hand in hand. You start to understand that. And then you say, well, wait a minute. If gold and silver is going up, how are they getting this stuff out of the ground? And who are the big producers and miners? And who is the big dividend payers? And what's the largest producer of silver? And what's the world's greatest producer of gold outside of, or mining outside of Newmont mining? And then you start to look at it and you're like, wait a minute. What's going on here? And what am I missing? And then you start to see projection earnings. What's starting to be projected here now going forward. And you start to look at it and you're like, I think we're starting to go in the right direction here. And once they start, remember, all these companies didn't take that out of the ground yet. They decided to wait to take the gold and silver out of the ground, so their earnings look like ass the last year and a half for these mining companies. Their revenue was down, even though they still were positive big time, but they weren't taking it out of the ground. So what happens when they do take it out of the ground? It's going to skyrocket. So the cheapest way to get the gold and silver out of the ground, especially gold, is mining stocks right now. It's crazy to say that, but it's true. They're not even valued at $2,000. So now when you start looking at it, you start to look at the ratios. Well, the ratio is kind of out of whack still between XDC and XRP and XLM and XRP. XLM's up 8% outflyer, right? It's already past that death cross in the 4 hourly. Now we see if it can continue this movement. It came down to the support perfectly. Buy support. And if it can get past this, sell resistance. So we very well could reverse the market structure, and then instead of falling down here to 29, you come back up here to 44, 45, and see if we can get back on this bullish way. We haven't come outside of it. So that's why it's so in the moment. You've got to pay attention. And right now, is this an outlier? Is this overzealous? We don't know. There's not a lot of volume, understandably. But right now it's flying past that positioning. So is that telling us something for the rest of the market? We know Ethereum still has a ways to go if it wants to continue this uptick. However, the 2 hourly all of a sudden fell bearish. But it still has room up to 35.58 if it wants to come up there. 2 hourly's having a little bit of an issue. So we'll see this in the short term to see if this is starting something in the wrong direction. So let's see. Define Group says 7,000 came back to me in a week when it was stolen. See? And that's the value of if you have an exchange with fire blocks, but you know, not everybody understands that. Technicals will help you with every other market, Cowabunga. That's what you really need to know. And then it'll help you understand the fundamentals. We got to see what Ethereum's doing, because if that 2 hours is a sign that we're starting to rotate this, we're going to get this surge in alts for a second, but then it's going to rotate real quick. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm glad that it's doing what it's doing right now, because this is what we talked about last night. This is what needed to happen to either validate a move down for the bearish continuation or to show us that we had enough support to push out. So I thought it was an opportunity there, but you know, you have to have a certain kind of moxie and understanding to be able to buy it there with emotion. And then if it does get to the resistance, and then you have to let go of it again, and then some of you, you know, the tax implication, there's just a whole thing that comes with it. But I wouldn't worry about it from a tax perspective of why you're not going to buy or sell. I don't, no. Was this the end of the bull market? No, we weren't in a bull market. All of crypto outside of Bitcoin was not in a bull market. Ethereum broke back into one after being in an extended bear market after that push up in January. And now it broke back into a bull market for Ethereum. But most crypto was in an extended bear market from January. And that's why we were able to buy before that pump 3 weeks ago and ride it out until right before the dump, because we understood that it was a bear market, and then it was a bear market rally, and now it's either a bull trap or a bear trap here on the bottom side. But as of right now, it's looking more bull trap-ish, and thus we can break back out here, and we're trying to prove whether this is a bearish continuation or if we can break bullish again. That's all we're trying to do here. So we don't overanalyze it, we don't overvalue it. We just look at XRP in the moment. We look at Bitcoin. We look at the numbers that we've given out today. And all we're looking for is the bottom line here. Can XRP get back above first this layer, and then ultimately in the 4 hour time frame retaking that daily golden cross? Or I mean the daily bearish, daily death cross, that, or 4 hour death cross that could be looking for rejection, or can we come back on top of it, retake this, and use this as a big reversal? That's all we're looking for here. That's all we're looking for. So that's what I'm looking at. So that's what I got, everybody. My son's gonna be doing his stuff right now. I'm gonna go make sure everything's good. We'll touch base on this afternoon, but I think this was a good 52-minute update this morning. Be blessed, everybody. This is exactly what we were talking about last night. We are back testing right now whether this is a bearish continuation or if this is going to be a much farther drop. If we get rejected here, it's about a 20 to 25% universal drop. If we hold here and break back bullish, it could be a nice start to the week. We'll know more by tonight when these weekly candles close. Right now, the weekly candles are looking pedestrian at best because we're looking at strong reversals, but there's still time to correct this. But if we end here, it's quite bearish to start the week, but there's still time to kind of change this here. We still got, what, 8 hours and 40 minutes, so objectively, just stay focused. Don't get too overzealous, but look for opportunity. Like we said last night was an opportunity, but understand where that opportunity might end, or can we get the bullish signal, or do we get the bearish signal for a continuation down? That's all we can do.